Welcome back to Bold TV. I'm David Grasso. Today we're asking the question, should you go to the gym in the middle of a pandemic? Well, we have people here to talk about this. You've already heard from them. Emilie Dye, she's the Director of Policy for the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, and Max Burns, he's a well-cited political commentator and a friend of Bold TV. So, gym owners are suffering after being closed for so many months. But Emilie, you brought up that people are suffering too. Tell me a little bit more about that.
There's so many other things besides COVID that also kill us. And one of the best ways to protect our health and to make sure we're not at risk for heart disease, to make sure we're not at risk for depression and suicide, is to go to the gym. Gyms, they improve your overall fitness. They're making you better off in so many ways. And that isn't something that should be essential. It really is an essential service. So we can't just go around counting one case or one type of disease and not count the other diseases. More people die every single year from other diseases related to obesity and lack of fitness.
Max, what do you think about that? Because you're saying, hey, there's a pandemic, it's great, you understand the value of fitness, it's just wrong place, wrong time right now.
Yeah, and that's a great point, is that Americans are overweight and they need fitness very badly. But when there's someone who's jumped on me with a knife to my throat, I'm not thinking, well, my cholesterol is really a little high. I'm focused on dealing with the imminent threat that's in front of me before worrying about sort of the longer term concerns. And COVID is an absolutely imminent challenge to deal with before we can go back to normal.
So, Max, before I leave you, though, some states are different, right? Because here we have a patchwork of 50 states, right? Some have closed gyms, some have gyms open with strict rules, and some just don't do anything. So what would you suggest out of those three options?
I think the lack of federal oversight here really is breeding confusion. As you mentioned, New York says that gyms are okay in a socially limited and safety regulated atmosphere. Some states are saying it's not safe in any case. But what we've seen from the medical experts is clear that we want to avoid places where we're close together, like in gyms. We want to avoid places where people we don't know are breathing heavily on or around us. And we want to try whenever possible to avoid doing heavy activities that will cause coughing, heavy breathing in enclosed spaces. That's a gym.
So, but Emilie here, just to push against Max, right? I'm here in Florida, everything's open and our numbers are actually lower than New York, right? So, and I've been going to the gym. In fact, my gym does not require a mask on the floor and I've been getting the benefits of working out without a mask, right? Should that be allowed? Like where do we begin to tackle this issue, right? Because it's so nuanced.
I think we've seen something very similar here in Australia between our two major states and the two biggest cities in Australia, Melbourne and Sydney. Victoria locked down. They had a very strict lockdown. People were only allowed out of their houses for an hour at a time. Each day they had 1 hour every 24 hours.
That wouldn't fly in America. There's no way.
Yeah, the police were like checking up on people to make sure that they were staying in their homes. And then on the other side, we had Sydney and the other states in Australia that were more open, that allowed people to get back to their lives. Those states are faring a lot better. And even when in New South Wales, we did have that risk, we had a recent uptick in COVID cases, we were able to combat that better than Victoria did when they had their big explosion, their second wave. And I think that's in large part because people have gotten back to their normal lives. We've been using contact tracing instead of as strict of lockdowns. So if someone went to the gym, we know that they went to the gym. We know who are members of that gym and who is there. And while that is an infringement on privacy, and that's a whole other can of worms, I think that has done more to prevent our COVID cases here than any amount of lockdowns did in Victoria.
That's really interesting. And you're, of course, in the state of New South Wales then. So, Max, I guess this kind of leads us into the discussion, and we're out of time here. Do lockdowns really work, right? I'm in a state where I'm here in the studio, I'm able to work, I'm able to go to the gym, and our death rate is still lower than New York. So do lockdowns really work, or are there too many variables here to really make a judgment like that?
Lockdowns work, but they need to be done with the resourcing to do them well. Now, there are certainly ways that we could minimize risk and reopen gyms nationwide, just like we could minimize risk and reopen the country. That takes resources and infrastructure that we have simply not built over the past year. So that's our real bottleneck now. If we can get to infrastructure readiness, then we can start to see things reopen and normal start to come back.
And I know we're out of time, but one thing we haven't mentioned is all the entrepreneurs that own these facilities. Do you both agree that the federal government should be helping them out, especially if they're mandating that they be closed, or at least their state government is?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there is some onus on the government after shutting down these businesses to provide that fiscal stimulus and to keep them going.
Yeah, it's totally unfair to people. You can't play both sides of it. You can't force them to close and then not give them money, because that means they can't survive. And like all of us, we need money to survive. So on that note, Emilie and Max, we really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you for having us on.
And thank you all for watching. Be sure to follow us at Bold TV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and much more. That's at Bold TV. I'm David Grasso, and I'll see you next time.